James Harden, his era underway in Philadelphia. We don't know how long it's going to last. It may only last the rest of this season. Harden has options. He has cards to play. But the Beard has played 2 games with his new team and happened while we were off our watch post here in the catbird seat of the sporting world. Now, in those games, the Sixers were not only an NBA team, they looked like the Harlem Globetrotters. They were amazing. Now, Philly is off to the 2-0 start post Ben Simmons' Wildcat strike that led to a trade, and James Harden, who also had his own issues in Brooklyn to get out of there. So they had played musical chairs. Of course, Ben Simmons, the malcontent, hasn't played in Brooklyn yet either. But amazingly, James Harden able to play. Go figure. Anyway, so Philly's off to the 2-0 start. They beat the Wolves and the Knickerbockers, which led to some very high praise from Joel Embiid. Now, if you didn't see this, and maybe you actually have a life, you were not paying attention. So Embiid, the big, boisterous star in Philadelphia, is not biting his tongue at all. Embiid said that the Sixers' 2-man game, the yin to the yang, James Harden and Joel Embiid, is, quote, unstoppable. That's his word, unstoppable. And, of course, making life very difficult on opposing defenders. Embiid went on to state that teams have to decide whether or not to stay on him or Harden, and that if you guard them both, then the rest of the Sixers roster, whoever's out there, the other 3 amigos, are wide open. Wide open. So let us discuss the question. All right, what's the big takeaway from Joel Embiid saying the 76ers are, quote, unstoppable, end quote, with James Harden? So I've got loquacious, Ghostbusters, and captain's chair. And we will combine all of these things together, and that will be the foundation of this MALLER monologue. Now, Joel Embiid, we know that this is a guy that likes to wag. He likes to wag his tongue. He's and I appreciate Embiid. He's full of hot air. These are guys that are great for what I do for a living. God bless Joel Embiid. We need more players like Embiid who will rant and rave and say all the crazy stuff. That's good. It's good for business. Now, James Harden and Joel Embiid are both elite-level offensive players. Now, Harden's numbers down in Brooklyn. The officiating an issue there. Certainly appears that things have come around for James Harden, that he's found his inner getting to the foul line ability again that he had in Houston. Now, this is a very small sample size. It's this big. It's not this big. It's this big. Can't see my hands. But Philadelphia played a good but not great Timberwolves team and a fickle, terrible Knickerbocker team that has had the wheels come off the bus. The wheels have come off the bus. Now, we have seen plenty of dynamic duos in NBA history, and it is obviously way too premature to say how dominant James Harden and Embiid will be. They should be great. They should be great. Are they unstoppable? That's an amazing word, unstoppable. That we're not at unstoppable yet. We're not there. What we do know is that Embiid's babbling is at all NBA levels, not just all-star levels, all NBA levels. The unstoppable quote, after recently saying that playing with James Harden helped him be the, quote, most wide open, close quote, he's been in his career. And I keep going back to the word loquacious with a capital L. That is what Embiid is. He's loquacious. And I also can't help but think that there were some ulterior motives in play with Joel Embiid. And let me explain here. So in hockey, they call it the old backhander. By praising James Harden, Embiid is digging the dagger in his old pal. Slapping Ben Simmons right in the face. Celebrating your new teammate while giving your ex a black eye. It's like you used to date somebody, and then you come across someone new, you're dating someone new, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, this new person's so much better than the old person. I mean, you don't say that, you don't say it in those terms. Like, oh, you're so amazing. You're so great. You're so wonderful. Oh, you're so, but you're really at the same time taking a shot at your ex. And Ben Simmons was, now I'm not a Simmons guy. He's a liability late in games. So he has been an all-star, and now after 2 games, the new guy is better. Embiid's the most wide open ever, and the Sixers are now unstoppable. All right, now part B. We are going to stop just short of calling James Harden and Joel Embiid unstoppable. Again, they should be fine and win a bunch of games in the regular season. But there are several reasons to be a doubting Thomas, or in this case, a doubting Maller. Obviously, you've got a small sample size. But wait, there's more. And I can't stop but go back to past results. Now, I know past results do not guarantee future outcomes. However, you and I, from watching the NBA, have seen the beard in the playoffs. And far too often on some really good Rockets teams, he ended up, the beard, going to the barbershop and getting the facial hair trimmed. And Harden's legacy precedes him both amazingly and also on the other side of the ledger. Think Ghostbusters. James Harden as Slimer, the green ghost who has a gigantic appetite. And Harden, we know, loves to score and shoot foul shots and all that. But Harden, just like Slimer, leaves behind a trail of that slime. We got to see Harden not have his famous hiccup that he is known for. He's got a bad hiccup problem. And what I mean by that is while Ben Simmons vanishes at the end of playoff games in the fourth quarter, he does not want the ball. James Harden has a different issue. Everyone's got issues. No one's perfect. But Harden has vanished for stretches of games himself in the postseason and at times completely gone AWOL. Now, is he an upgrade over Ben Simmons? I am nodding my head yes. Obviously, Harden is a better player than Ben Simmons, who is afraid to shoot from more than 3 feet away from the basket. But that's not really saying much, right? Because the Aussie muffed it. He was guilty of malfeasance in the postseason last year in Philly. All right, now the last word on this. So the 76ers are in the grab bag of teams on Maller's big board in the Eastern Conference who have a legitimate claim to the top spot. Now, the six-pack, I got a six-pack of contenders on ice. You've got the Bucks, who did not have a particularly great weekend, losing to the Nets over the weekend, but it's February. The Miami Heat, the Bulls, who took one on the chin against Memphis, the Celtics, the Nets, assuming Kyrie is able to play, it sounds like that will be the case home and road in the playoffs, and the aforementioned Sixers. And that's it. That's the list. I do not have Cleveland on my big board. I don't have the Cavs on my big board. Now, one thing about championship teams, what it takes to be a winner, the R word comes into play. Like, there's no one who's perfect, so you got to be resilient. And that means that no matter what happens, you have to find a way to overcome the A word, adversity here. And there's also, whatever your weak link is, that will be exposed at some point, and you have to overcome that. It's kind of obvious. That would be the adversity. Now, for the Sixers, you have the double whammy. Not only do you have the occasional James Harden playoff flatulence, but also the kryptonite that is Doc Rivers. And never forget, you say, I know coaching's not that big in the NBA, but in the playoffs, when you take the analytics out of it, and it's spur of the moment, game 7, deciding game situation, and a coach has to think on his feet and decide what he's going to do in the heat of the moment. Doc Rivers, we all know this guy's the worst coach in the NBA in that situation. There's no one worse. In the history of the NBA, Doc Rivers is the gold standard for suckage. Late in playoff series, teams that have tremendous talent. Doc's been very blessed to coach some amazing teams. And when things are good, when the ship is cruising in the open seas and the waters are calm, there is no one you would rather have than Doc Rivers. He is charming. He's wonderful. The players love him. He's a player's coach. The media loves him. All of that. But as soon as the waters become a little stormy and you have to batten down the hatches, and there's turbulence out there, he suffers from panic attacks. And when the going gets tough, he tends to be the guy that panics. That turns into Mr. Freeze. He's a bystander. And we have seen it. I saw it up close with the Clips. His teams underperform their talent level. Why will it be any different in Philadelphia? It's not going to be any different in Philadelphia. There is no coach who has been in the captain's chair for more playoff heartbreak and heartache than Glenn Rivers, better known as Doc. He's lost the most Game 7s in NBA history, the most Game 7s at home in NBA history. He's the only coach to be on the bench while his teams blew 3-1 series leads. Only one coach in NBA history has blown 3-1 leads for their team more than once. That's Doc Rivers, who did it 3 times. No other coach has done it more than once. Doc's done it 3 times. He spoiled the big 3. The Celtics, now they won a championship in spite of Doc Rivers, but they should have won more than that. And the ineptitude of Doc hurt that team. Blew the Lob City Clippers, the great Lob City Clippers, incompetence Doc Rivers. Things got tough. Doc didn't know what to do. He had that dazed, kind of glazed look in his eyes. I'm very familiar with that look. I saw it a lot when he coached the Clips. And then he even screwed up the beginning of the Kawhi PG-13 run. In a bubble, he screwed that up against the Chicken Nuggets. And I was on local Philly radio last week, actually, and I was doing the panic peddling for the 76ers. So, again, just to recap, listen, Joel Embiid and James Harden in the regular season against mediocre to average teams, fine. And even against good teams. The question in the playoffs, are you going to be able to consistently get to the foul line time and time again when they usually let you play a little bit more in the postseason? That then becomes problematic, if you will. But that's the story in Philadelphia right now. They're off to the 2-0 start, and everyone now is prematurely crowning them the top team, blah, blah, blah. Until Durant comes back and Kyrie starts going and the Nets win a couple of games, although they did win over the weekend. But when those guys are clicking, then it'll be like, oh, wait a minute here. Now it's the Nets. And then it's like a sliding scale. And then the Bucks will win a couple games. It'll be, no, it's the Bucks. It's whatever shiny object is out in front of you, you just go with it. That's kind of how this works. At least I've noticed over the years that's how it works.